Hey, good afternoon all my YouTube friends and followers, and a special shout out to my Aussie mate Tim Rumble at True Blue Overland. Check it out if you want to see what goes on down there while we're sleeping up here. Oh, and Tim, I got you a t-shirt when I was in Moab, and no worries mate, I'll air it out before I box it up. So, you heard Moab in there, didn't you? Well, a couple of weeks ago, my son called me and said, "Look, Dad, I've had enough. I got to get out of here. I'm going to take Sean Riley, my grandson, and we're headed to Moab." And he said, "You want to come along?" To which I immediately replied, "No, I can't just pack up and leave here in a week. It's not enough notice. I've got business to do." And so he might have been a little disappointed, but I got to thinking, well, I am the boss, and I can pretty much take a week off if I want to. So I called him back, and I said, hell yeah, I can go. Let's do this thing. So what you're about to see is a conglomeration of some still photos and some gimbal shots of four-wheel drive action and some drone footage that I've managed to capture on my brand new Mavic Air 2, which has been sitting in my Amazon cart just waiting for me to have an excuse to push purchase now. So hang in there. Willow Creek Trail has some spectacular views along the way. Most of Moab, of course, is geologically unbelievable, but there is a section of trail that we always stop and do a quick flex check. The terrain here is such that you can see that the articulation on the Jeep Gladiator is really good, and aside from a little bit of rubbing, everything was working normally.
Nice run.
So our first stop was, of course, Eye of the Whale Arch. I'd never walked up there. There's the gang. And this time we did. And my brother came along, which is another story. But we were glad to have him. And then Tower Arch is along this route also. And it's just another one of those objects that you can't see unless you get completely off-road in a high clearance vehicle. So this is the first of the really test obstacles along Willow Creek Trail, and I was a little concerned that I might have problems with my departure angle and my breakover right about there. But aside from a little bump here and a little scrape there, we passed with flying colors. And so here's the second rise to this little waterfall type obstacle here. Fairly smooth, but it is steeper than it looks, and of course the camera just doesn't do it justice. I think we were at 26 degrees there. So a few more views are marching men along the trail here. As you go out through Salt Valley, you can see Skyline Arch off in the distance, and of course we had the LaSalle Mountains always in the background. So snow-capped this time of year because it's just so pretty.
To Fiery Furnace. Off to the left.
This is a short clip I shot of Fiery Furnace on our way down to the lower road that leads to Delicate Arch.
The road runs down the valley towards Delicate Arch.
I tried walking up to Delicate Arch one time and I just couldn't make the 3-mile round trip, but there's a section here along the road that you can actually see the arch from, and so I snapped a few of these, and with a little bit of digital magic I managed to get looking fairly close. Now at the end of the trail there in at Delicate Arch, at the end of the parking lot, there's a trail that goes out, and I noticed it a year and a half ago, and we didn't have time that day to take this trail, but we had plenty of time, so we decided to get on there. And this actually was a pretty good trail. According to Gaia GPS, it leads up and over, and there's two routes from the top of that hill that you're seeing that are just
Looks like I can back up.
they go out to overlook the Colorado River. And we were doing fine until we came across this spot here, and my son got out and walked it and said, that's really a no-go for me either. It is far steeper than it looks, very loose rocky, and there was quite a vertical ledge about halfway up. And it didn't look like anybody had been up there in a long while, so we turned around. On the way back, we got off onto some offshoot trails. I mean, we're going to go ahead and explore the area. And so on the way back, we just come across the road and we take it. One of those roads led down into a wash. Now, this wash was especially difficult, and we thought quite a bit about turning around. We didn't have any vehicle damage through here, but it was an extremely rough wash. And when we came to a 12 or 14 foot waterfall, we decided that we weren't going to be able to progress any further. And so this is just a look at how rough and narrow it was, and the fact that my son actually offered to come back and spot me because, well, we needed some help.
So we're wondering if
We had to be very careful through here. It's extremely rough, and the day's getting late, so
got a spotter.
we decided we'd follow it as far as we can and then figure out some way to get turned around. And when we couldn't get turned around, we found an alternate route that went up out of the wash to the road that was just 100 yards away. Here's a particularly tight spot here, and I wasn't sure about tire placement here, having some large boulders on either side, and I really didn't want to damage those tires, sidewalls of the tires. So here's the trail that we ultimately found coming up out of the wash, and we are back on the road now and headed back into town for some dinner.
Yes, sir.
So all in all, it was a fun day. We knew we were going to be on Willow Creek Trail.
Yeah.
We hadn't planned on taking this trail, but if you're at the parking lot at Delicate Arch, the second parking lot, the lower parking lot, there's a trail that leads off from there, and it's well worth your effort. You'll agree that the Willow Creek Trail in Arches and Arches Park is just one of those places where you can't bypass. This is a really nice off-roading trail. It's fairly easy. It's a way to break in people that have never been out in a four-wheel drive vehicle to some of the capabilities of the Jeeps. And the trail that we took later in the afternoon from the parking lot at Delicate Arch was a trail that I spotted about 1.5 years ago while I was there with my wife Monica, and we didn't dare to take that trail at that time, but we had plenty of time left in the day, so we thought, what the heck, let's take that trail. And that's where I shot that picture of Delicate Arch. It goes right off of Arch's property through a gate that you can open and close behind you, and that's a great trail until you get to that one spot where it's quite steep, quite rocky, and there's a 3 or 4 foot vertical ledge about halfway up, and it didn't look like anybody had been up there before, so that's when we turned around. Anyway, hang in there, there's more. So dinner that night, we stopped at a place called Spokes. It's an excellent place to eat. Here's some interior shots. There are very few bad places to eat. Look for a Thai place, and of course, don't miss Moab Diner. Well, day 2 started out a little on the cloudy side and pretty windy, and I guess unseasonably cool, but that didn't keep us from hitting Baby Lion's Back first thing. and then heading over to Fins and Things and Hell's Revenge after that. So stay tuned, look for some good drone footage and some great pictures and video of us on various obstacles like car wash. So here's the first shot ever of my Mavic Air 2 drone. This is one of those canned quick shots, they call it. The guys have been bugging me for the last couple of days to get the drone out and start flying it, but the weather conditions and winds were really high, and they weren't any less high here. If you'll notice that the drone struggles somewhat to complete this maneuver, but it completed it without fail, and that was our first drone shot there in Fins and Things, along Fins and Things. And of course, who doesn't take a picture of their Jeep with the LaSalle Mountains in the background? And as we approached car wash here, we were bringing up the rear. We had connected up with a couple of tag-alongs, one of them in a CJ6 there from Las Vegas, and this fellow here from Tennessee and his wife. And it was just amusing to me to be parked across the way and watching these Jeeps slowly disappear like the setting sun. Watch this. And then slowly pop up from the other side. It was kind of cool. And at this time, it was my turn. I had my brother with me, so he is one of the 4 people that were with us that had never been off-roading in this area. And so this is the approach to car wash. Now, it's tricky because you can't see anything. Once you get up onto this rock, all you can see is sky. And my son is telling me, put your driver tire right on me as though you're going to run over me. It's important to get aligned up here at car wash. This is one of the things that makes it one of the more challenging obstacles along the way, because you're completely blind. And then the trick is, once you get to the top, you actually have to bear off towards the driver's side even more. Otherwise you come down quite a ways to the right. And my son is telling me right now, driver, 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 driver. But believe me, whether you're driver or passenger, you're going to make it to the bottom. That much is for certain. And then of course the climb out, it's not really any steeper than anything that we've already encountered. But as you can see there, that little bit of vibration was dragging my trailer hitch somewhat. And so car wash is always a favorite along this trail, not to be missed. Give it a try. Well, day 3 started out clear but cool, and we thought, what a great day to hit 7 Mile Rim Trail. Now, if you've never been on 7 Mile Rim Trail, there's an arch called Uranium Arch that you can only see if you're in a high clearance 4-wheel drive vehicle. And then you've got Wipeout Hill and Sago Canyon. So my grandson, Sean Riley, was getting some wheel time today. His dad put him behind the wheel. This is a good trail to break in a new 4-wheeler, and he seems to be having a good time. Here's a quick shot with my gimbal of Ted's Jeep Cliff Dweller. And this is my passenger, Sean, who we picked up in Utah on the way down. A longtime friend of my son. And we brought his son, which is my grandson's best friend. I know it's all real complicated. Anyway, he's talking about sometime being able to break out his metal detector here. somewhere along the trail. And so when we got down to Uranium Arch, he kind of went crazy.
That's true. A lot of gold in this.
Now here's the second of Sean's attempts to do some off-roading. I think his dad wanted to come down a little more driver and take that sharp drop off, and then decided, well, maybe that's a little advanced for someone who's never really driven off-road before. But still, this is a great place to train someone and to get them used to picking lines and tire placement. So I broke out my gimbal here and took some rolling shots of my grandson.
Very nice. Good job.
So it wasn't very long and you come to the first real attraction here, and that's this overview. And I broke out the camera with the gimbal again and did some walking shots here. I think this is probably 600 or 800 feet above Highway 191 that runs into Moab. And so as you look out, you can catch the LaSalle Mountains and the road there to the extreme left as it drops down the valley into Moab.
You saw the dozen that were down in the valley, right?
As you can see, I like my Jeep. This Gladiator's been a fun build. And this is a great place to take a few shots.
There's the LaSalle Mountains.
Beautiful LaSalle Mountains off in the distance.
Beautiful today.
The last time I was here in September, the mountains are bare. They don't have any snow on them. They're much more spectacular in the spring when they still have a little snow on them. So here's the second of my drone flights. This is another quick shot. It's called Spiral. And this does just exactly what you need it to do if you don't feel like flying this thing manually. And, you know, I've flown a lot of radio-controlled airplanes and even some helicopters. And the first thing I had to do was figure out how not to fly this. The thing about the Mavic Air 2 is that it pretty much stays where you put it, and you can actually take your eyes off of it, and you don't have to, you're not always on the control sticks either. So that was a nice shot. Now we're dropping down into Uranium Arch here, and this is a place where, one of those places where only a select few people that have a properly equipped vehicle can actually get to. The trail down in here is fairly rough. Four-wheel drive and high clearance is a must. Lockers not necessary. I've been to Moab now 3 or 4 times on open differentials, and I didn't have any issues whatsoever down here at the arch. So I broke out the camera and I took a few more gimbal shots.
Here we are at Uranium Arch.
And I'm really pleased with the footage that I got from it. I'll be looking forward to using the gimbal
7-mile room trail.
quite a bit. If you listen carefully here, I'm not sure you can hear it or not, but Sean is really having a great time with his metal detector. I think he actually found some coins and an old rusty Dr. Pepper can. So a little further down the trail now, and here we've come to a pretty formidable obstacle, and there is a way to drive around this. It's a rise of about 15 feet or so in some large step-like shelves, and so Ted took a little harder line up that, and I decided I was just going to go on around. And then I got to looking at it, and there's actually a line that I could take that would not compromise or be compromised by my breakover angle and my departure angle. And so once he was finished going through this section while I was filming, I decided to take the Black Pearl up through there, because I knew if I chose the right line, I could do it too. And so I'm happy to report that I made it up without a hitch and only a little bit of chirp on the tires. So this is where the Gladiator, though not having quite the same specs as the JK as far as breakover and departure angles, if you use proper tire placement and pick a good line, as you can see, I'm not taking these steps head on. I'm putting one tire up and then the next, and then one tire up and then the next, and it has a tendency to just drive right up. So I was really pleased with the way the Gladiator performed with just 2.5 inch Icon Stage 1 lift and some 35-inch tires.
Come on out.
And here's Cliff Dweller here going through Big Crack. It's another obstacle along the way. I did drive around this because, as you'll notice, his breakover angle, even as high an angle as he's able to accomplish, I think he probably cleared that. I would have definitely drugged through there, without a doubt. So now the next obstacle is one of my favorites. It's called Burnt Toast for obvious reasons, and it's a very, very narrow passage through there. I know it doesn't look very challenging, but you've only got just a couple of inches clearance between your tires there on the driver's side, the left side, and a wall that's about eye level when you're sitting in your Jeep there on the right side. And so Sean went through there pretty cautiously. I've been through here before. I know if I keep the passenger mirror about an inch away from that shelf, that I'll clear through there. And so I just kind of breezed through. And the rest is some more drone footage of this particular obstacle. Though not challenging, I thought it would look kind of cool to be shoot it from up above as we pass through. And so we stopped to stretch after going through there. Here's a look at Burnt Toast, and did a quick flyover here. This is about the third time now I've had this Mavic Air 2 in the air, and so I'm getting a little more comfortable with it. I'm starting to fly it a little bit, and for some reason I threw in this landing shot just because any landing you can walk away from, correct? So not far from there, after you drop down a steep off-camber incline, is Wipeout Hill. Now, nobody ever goes down it, or at least no one in our team has ever gone down it or come back up it. But we walked it, Ted walked it, and decided that sections of this were no worse than some of the hill climbs at Fins and Things. And so he decided he was going to drive down it with me as a spotter. Now, I'm not confident enough to spot him coming up, say, Hell's Revenge, or I should say Hell's Gate. Their tire placement is critical and you could suffer some damage. But I didn't, I felt pretty comfortable guiding him down Wipeout Hill here. And I've sped this clip up a little bit because it took a little while to get down there. You've got to take your time. Tire placement is important. You don't want to go too far off camber. So I sped this up some so that we could enjoy it without taking as much time as it actually did to drive it. And it's just like Ted said, it's no steeper in places than obstacles we climb, like for instance Kenny's Crawl there at Fins and Things. So after we got past the last really rough obstacle, we stopped in this area here where there's some towering wall structures. Here they are. And got out and flew the drone a little bit. Now I'm actually got control of the drone here, and I'm learning to pan while rotating around an object. This is not a quick shot. This is something that I actually did on my own. And I thought it turned out pretty good. And I'm always fascinated by the geologic structures in this area and how they could possibly be formed. And from what I understand, these structures actually happen because the softer material down below erodes away faster than the harder stuff on top. And you'd think that the whole thing would come down and collapse. But you can see a pile of rubble there under the left one where rocks have tumbled off over the decades, centuries. And it made for a kind of a cool shot to fly around there. You can also see off in the background some of the scenery along this trail as I do a quick flyby. Here I just did a nice pan to the right, try to get an idea of, or give you an idea of the surroundings that this trail takes you through. And then taking scenes from way up above really looks cool. And once again, we're landing. Forgive me, but after spending as much as you do on these things and flying it around and capturing the footage that you want, it's always fun to catch the landing, especially with the Jeeps in the background. And then what's kind of cool about this is it reminds me of Perseverance here, landing on Mars. Ted was convinced that day 4 was going to be a real bummer because we had originally planned on going to Elephant Hill Road and trying that trail. It's a Jeep of Honor trail and we were both anxious to get the badge, but considering that the day before I blew out a tire and was running solely on my spare and not having another spare, we decided that we would take things a little bit more easy, head up overland through Gemini Bridges and ending up at Mineral Point where we got some really cool drone footage. So stay tuned for that. Yeah, Gemini Bridges, this has been a favorite place of mine. This is a canyon road that takes you to the bridges from down below. So we actually turned off the road that takes you to the upper part of Gemini Bridges and drive down through this really cool wash. And then there's about a 200-yard or so short hike to an area here just below the bridges. And this actually was where I asked Monica to marry me. 18 or 20 months ago. It was in September, I think, of 18, 19. God, I hope I remember the anniversary. Anyway, so here's Gemini Bridges from down below. It's called Gemini Bridges because, as you'll note here as I zoom up, that there's actually two bridges there, and there's quite a crack between them, and then a large sinkhole behind that. And so we will go up here when we leave down below, and we'll go up here and hike down and take some photos. Like I said, we have 4 people that have never been to Moab or anywhere in this area, let alone on tough Jeep trails. And so as I'm coming into a landing here, I'm standing in front of a rock, and that's exactly where I proposed to Monica. And she said yes. So we've driven a little farther off road here, off highway. We're overlanding today. We're trying to stay off of the tougher trails to protect the sidewalls of the tires that I chose for my Jeep Gladiator. And we've ended up here at Mineral Point. And this was a spot that my son recommended. And he said, yeah, it's an easy drive, about an hour on pavement, but it took us most of the day, or a good chunk of the day, to get here, coming overland from Gemini Bridges. But the view is spectacular. I mean, this is a spot that's over the Green River that's just unquestionably a breathtaking spot. And here's where we decided to have some lunch, and I broke out the drone again and started doing some filming, and you can get some really cool effects. Here's another one of those quick shots called a spiral. You just pick the subject you want to center on and hit start, and it does all of this automatically and comes right back to where it started and waits for your command. It's a really cool feature. I do recommend the Mavic Air 2 for price and capability. And I would recommend that you get the Fly More package if you were to buy this, because you're getting about $400 worth of added accessories for about $180. This is just a gorgeous area. We had pretty good weather. It was actually snow flurrying a little bit while we were there, but nothing threatening. And as you can see, we're parked quite close to a probably 400 or 500 foot precipice there. Now my son has told me something about that he learned about here. If you look off to the extreme right, you'll see some kind of object that's been attached to the rock wall, and then you look towards the center, you'll see a coil of steel rope. Now I can't remember what it was he told me. Perhaps they would rappel or work down below the edge of the cliff mining something, but as I sweep past here, you'll see coils of this steel rope, steel cable. So this is a really cool place to come and explore. Of course, Sean got his metal detector out. and had a heyday while we were eating lunch. And of course I couldn't help but do some drone flying here and getting some really pretty cool footage. The video quality is incredible. This is shot at 4K at 30 frames per second. And I hope to utilize it more on the channel as we get out and do some more overlanding and camping this year. And like all of these videos, you know, this looks really nice on film and everything, but it's not quite like being there. But this next shot here gives the effect that will give you an idea of just how high up we are and how close to the edge we parked. Not so close as to be dangerous, but close enough that if you stand at the front of the Jeep, it's quite a ways down in front of you. Straight down. And here's a parting shot. We're ready to go. And there's the whole gang. So that ended day 4, and on our way out we stopped at a place called Sago Canyon, which is surprisingly on the way back to Salt Lake City, and there are quite a few not petroglyphs but wall art. These are actually paintings left by Native Americans. There's also a ghost town here. And so I would encourage you to, as you're leaving Moab, to go north, or excuse me, east on 70 to the very next exit, and then turn north and follow it to Sago Canyon, and you'll see all this stuff there. It was a fun trip, and thanks for riding along. Well, that's a wrap on our emergency trip to Moab. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please like. You're free to comment and subscribe also. I'm Ted, this is Black Pearl Voyager, and we'll see you on the next overlanding campout coming soon.